You are 31. Your salary is the highest it has ever been, $74,000, and your net worth is roughly $9,000, most of it sitting in a checking account you treat like a holding pen. It's late. The apartment is quiet enough that you can hear the fridge humming from the kitchen, and the only light on is the one over the table. For years, you told yourself the late start was a problem of timing, a matter of bad luck and a slow decade. You're starting to understand it is a problem of math, and that the math does not care how you feel about it. You open a compounding calculator on your phone, the same way someone 10 years younger might have. You type in the number everyone repeats online. Start at 25, save $500 a month at 7%, retire with a fortune. Then you delete the 25 and type 31. The final figure drops by an amount that does not feel proportional to 6 missing years. You run it again to make sure you didn't fumble a digit. You didn't. The 6 years you skipped cost far more than 6 years of contributions, because the dollars you didn't invest at 25 are the dollars that would have had the longest time to multiply. The earliest money is the most expensive money to skip. Nobody explained that at 25. You think back to being 25, a folding table for a desk, a stack of student loan statements you were afraid to open, a paycheck that felt spent before it landed. At 25, you were paying off a degree and learning that a salary disappears faster than it arrives, and that nobody hands you a structure for keeping it. So, you sit with the number. The instinct is to feel behind, and behind is a feeling that arrives easily and helps with nothing. You set it down. You are not 25. You will never be 25 again, and no amount of resentment toward your younger self produces a single dollar. The question is not how to recover the decade you didn't invest. The question is what the decade in front of you is worth and whether you will do anything with it before it joins the one behind you. You decide that night. Not a goal, not a plan, not yet, a decision. They feel similar, and they are not the same thing. There is one fact in your favor, and it is not a small one. You earn more now than the 25-year-old version of you ever did, nearly double. The thing that's gone is time. The thing that's arrived is money. The entire game from here is trading one for the other. You don't say any of this out loud. There's no one to say it to yet. You just open your laptop, the glow of the screen the only light left on in the apartment. You open a brokerage account and a Roth IRA in the same week. You move $400 in. It is not a triumphant amount. It is the first dollar of yours that is working instead of waiting. You set the transfer to automatic, the first of the month before you can have an opinion about it, before the money can be claimed by something louder. You buy 3 boring index funds, total U.S. market, total international, a small bond slice, and you do not look at the price the next morning. You cancel a subscription you forgot you were paying for. You renegotiate the car insurance and recover for $40 a month. Small leaks sealed quietly. Every recovered dollar routed straight into the account. Your savings rate, which was effectively 0, crosses 18%. Net worth crosses $20,000 for the first time. You are not excited. Something has shifted anyway, and you can feel the difference between a number that sits and a number that moves. You are 33. You have started doing the thing the 25-year-olds genuinely cannot do yet. Using your peak earning years instead of your peak energy years. You asked for the raise and got most of it. You changed jobs once for $14,000 more and did not upgrade the apartment to match it. Your rent went up $90 at renewal, and that was the only thing about your life that changed. Everyone you know spent their 30s raise on a louder version of the same life. The bigger lease, the newer car, the upgraded everything. You spent yours on a quieter one that almost nobody could see. The savings rate climbed from 18% to 31%, and most of that climb did not come from earning more. It came from refusing to let the spending follow the income up the stairs. This is the lever the late starter actually has, and it is worth understanding precisely. The 25-year-old has time and almost no money. You have money and less time. Money can be deployed in larger amounts, and large amounts applied consistently do a meaningful share of what time does. A 35-year-old putting away $2,000 a month is doing something a 22-year-old putting away $400 a month is not, even though the 22-year-old started first and feels years ahead. The math of the late start is brutal at the front and surprisingly forgiving at the back, but only if the front is aggressive enough to make up the difference. Yours is aggressive because it has no choice. You buy the same funds on the same date every month, automated, barely thought about. Net worth $71,000, growing whether you check it or not. You barely notice the market has been quiet for a while. Quiet markets don't announce themselves. They just keep going until, one week, they don't. The market drops 29% over 8 months. Your portfolio falls from around $90,000 to about $64,000. On paper, $26,000 disappears. Nearly a full year of your contributions gone while you watch it happen 1 week at a time. Your coworker Sophia texts you a screenshot of her own account, the number cut nearly in half. 3 exclamation points and nothing else. A coworker your age who started investing the same year you did sells everything in the worst week of it. She tells you she can't afford to lose it. Not at her age, not starting this late. The people like them don't get a second runway. You understand every word of the sentence. You feel the pull of it in your own chest. You don't sell a single share. You keep the automatic transfer running straight through the bottom, which means every one of those dollars buys more shares than it did a year earlier. The late starter's first crash is heavier than the early starters, and not because the percentage is different. It's heavier because the runway to recover feels shorter. Because there is a voice that says, you don't have the time to make this back, that this was the gamble and it failed. But the recovery does not consult your age. It does not know how old you were when you started. It only knows whether you were still holding when it came. 18 months later, the portfolio is past where it began. She is still climbing back toward a number she used to have. She will spend years catching up to where she already stood. And those are years she cannot spend twice. You won't. Net worth $128,000. The median net worth for a household your age sits somewhere around $135,000. You are at the median now. 3 years ago, you were nowhere near it. Discipline in one crash closed a gap that a decade of waiting had opened. You are 37. You earn $112,000. You live on about $58,000. The gap between those two numbers is the entire machine, and the machine is finally large enough to make its own noise. Last year, the portfolio grew by roughly $19,000 on its own before you added a single dollar to it. The first time the account earned more in a year than you could have saved from a month of working, you read the statement twice and then put it down slowly. This is the moment the late start stops being a deficit you are paying off and becomes a position you are holding. You compress nearly a decade of saving into 6 years because you had the income to compress it with. The 25-year-old's advantage was time. Yours was force. Both, applied without flinching, arrive at the same place. They simply take different roads, and yours is steeper and shorter and lit differently. This is the year nothing on the spreadsheet warned you about. It begins in February. Your mother needs a procedure, and the gap her insurance won't cover comes to $9,400. You sit in a waiting room chair that isn't quite the right height, scrolling nothing on your phone, waiting for a name to be called. And you are the child who can write the check. So you write it without a second of hesitation and feel the account flinch. In June, the company reorganizes and your role is folded into someone else's. You spend 3 months interviewing in stolen lunch hours while performing calm in meetings, pretending the floor is steady. You land the next role. It pays slightly less than the last one. In September, you and your partner sit at the same kitchen table where this all started, and the conversation is quieter than the arguments people expect. A relationship of 3 years ends, partly from the strain of everything above it, partly because somewhere inside the discipline you had forgotten that money was supposed to serve a life and not quietly replace one. You contribute less than half of what you planned this year. The portfolio grows anyway because the market does not read your calendar and feels nothing about your February. It crosses $174,000. You sit with the slippage, the missed contributions, the quiet target date you had drawn for yourself, sliding further out into the future. Then you remember the date was always invented. The freedom at the end of it is not. You keep going. Your mother is recovering, slower than before, but recovering, and you were there for the parts that mattered. The spreadsheet did not model the check or the grief or the 3 months of pretending the floor was steady. It modeled none of the year that turned out to matter most. You adjust the plan and keep the plan. That is the entire skill. And the late starter learns it earlier than most because the late starter has less margin for the years that go sideways. You are 41. The portfolio reads $310,000. You did not arrive here by being early. You arrived by being relentless in the years you actually had, and by refusing to flinch when those years got hard. The thing about starting in your 30s is that you reach the same destinations the early starters reach, just a few years later and carrying a different pattern of scars. You don't have the 40-year tailwind at your back the way they do. What you have instead is the proof, built inside your own account, through your own crash, across your own catastrophic year, that you can do this thing under pressure. That proof turns out to be worth more than the years you lost, because plenty of the early starters who had all that time threw it away, and you had less of it and kept every piece. You are 47, net worth $640,000. The two engines, what you earn and what your money earns, are now roughly the same size. A sentence that would have sounded absurd to the 31-year-old staring at a $9,000 balance and a calculator that told her she was too late. She wasn't too late. She was late, which is a different word with a different ending. Late means you begin behind and you close the distance with everything you have. Too late means you never begin at all. The only people who are genuinely too late are the ones who decide that they are, and then use the decision as permission to keep waiting. You will not retire at 41 the way some of the people who started at 22 can. That door closed before you knew there was a door, and there is no use standing at it. But there is another door, and it opens later, and it leads to the same room. You cross into the part of your 50s where the work becomes optional before it becomes impossible, where a layoff is an inconvenience instead of a catastrophe, where you keep working not because the mortgage demands it, but because you chose the thing you're doing and could stop the day you wanted. The freedom arrives. It arrives with gray at the temples instead of the smooth face of the early retiree. And it arrives every bit as real, every bit as yours. You are 31 again in the memory of it. The calculator is still open on the phone. The number still smaller than it would have been if you'd been someone else, somewhere else a decade earlier. You can feel the pull of the easy conclusion that the missing decade is a verdict, that the race was lost before you ever entered it, that people who start this late are just funding a slightly more comfortable old age. You set the phone down instead. You make the transfer. The first $400 leaves the account that has only ever held money still and goes somewhere it will finally do something. Outside people your exact age are running the same math tonight and arriving at the easier answer, the one that lets them keep waiting another year and another. They are not behind. Behind implies a single finish line and a shared clock, and there is neither. They are simply standing at the fork the late starter always reaches, the one with two doors. One is marked too late and it is wide and quiet and leads nowhere. The other is marked late and it is narrow and steep and opens eventually onto the exact thing the early version was always after. You do not announce which one you take. You just stop standing in front of them. The machine opens every morning. It has never once asked how old you were when you walked in.